You water it every week. You placed it near the window, maybe on a shelf that catches morning light. You don't talk about it much, but deep down you were hoping that little green plant would do something, shift the energy, attract good fortune, make things feel a little easier. It's just a plant, you know that. But still, it felt like a small act of faith, a quiet partnership with something alive. They call it the money plant, the ZZ, a low-maintenance symbol of luck and abundance. You've seen it in local salons, in front offices, maybe even in the homes of people who seem to have it all together. And when you got yours, you thought, why not? But weeks go by, months even. And while the plant stays alive, your finances don't seem to move. Your goals feel stuck. And that gentle optimism you felt at the beginning, it's turned into something heavier, something like doubt. This video isn't about blaming the plant or mocking the belief behind it. It's about asking, what's actually going on here? Why do so many people place their hopes in this particular plant and still feel like nothing's changing? What if the ZZ plant isn't broken, but the way it's being used is? What if it's not attracting wealth because it's been placed in the wrong part of your home? Or worse, in the wrong energy of your life? Because here's the truth, some objects do carry meaning, but meaning doesn't work without intention. And wealth, real, grounded, steady wealth, needs more than a pretty pot on a window ledge. It needs alignment, attention. And sometimes all it takes to shift the energy is moving one thing 2 feet to the left. Let's look at the ZZ plant not as a miracle, but as a mirror. Part 1, the plant everyone trusts, but few understand. They call it the money plant, the ZZ. It looks simple, thick, glossy leaves, upright stems, tidy roots that barely ask for water. It's affordable, easy to care for, hard to kill. For many people, that alone makes it the perfect houseplant. But the real reason so many homes and businesses keep one quietly growing in the corner isn't about the plant itself. It's about the hope it represents. Somewhere along the way, this low-maintenance greenery became a quiet symbol for prosperity. You walk into a nail salon, there it is. Sit in the waiting room at a dentist's office, it's on the windowsill. In your friend's apartment, the one who always seems to have her life together, it's next to her couch. People don't talk about it much, but it's always there, sitting still, absorbing light, carrying something unspoken. The idea is simple, that this plant, this quiet little life form, can attract something better into your space. That just by being there, it can shift your luck, raise your vibration, unlock flow. It sounds almost too easy, too magical to be real. But we still believe, because sometimes belief is easier than control. It's easier to place your hope into something silent and green than to confront the areas of your life where nothing seems to move. And that's where this plant becomes more than just a plant. It becomes a mirror, not of what's true, but of what's missing. You bought it when you were trying to get back on your feet, or when money felt tight and you didn't know what else to do, or maybe you didn't buy it at all. Maybe someone gave it to you as a gift, saying, "This brings good luck." And in that small gesture, you felt the smallest flicker of trust again, like maybe something outside of you could help things turn around. But here's what no one tells you. The ZZ plant doesn't create wealth. It doesn't manifest anything on its own. What it does when placed with thought, when cared for with presence, is it reflects. It reflects your patterns, your habits, your willingness to believe, and your quiet hesitations. It doesn't respond to wishful thinking. It responds to energy, placement, intention. And for most people, that's where things go wrong. We treat it like a token, a charm, something passive that's supposed to just work. But energy doesn't move without direction, and symbols without understanding become clutter. The ZZ plant ends up tucked into a dark corner behind furniture or gathering dust in a forgotten room, no longer a beacon, just background. And slowly, without realizing, you start to feel that same stillness inside yourself. Stuck, flat, waiting. If this feels familiar, it's not your fault. You're not silly for hoping. In fact, your hope is what makes you powerful. But hope must have a place to live and a direction to grow. The ZZ plant can absolutely support that, but only when you place it like a message, not a decoration. Not as a filler for an empty shelf, but as a conscious decision. I want to invite flow here. I want to open this space. I'm choosing this. That shift in mindset, that subtle clarity, is the difference between symbolic energy and stagnant belief. The truth is, people don't just want wealth, they want movement. They want life to feel open again, to breathe a little easier when bills come in, to feel supported by their home instead of weighed down by it. And so they look for symbols, plants, crystals, colors, things that feel natural, gentle, almost spiritual in a world that feels too loud, too fast, too unpredictable. But not all symbols are universal, and not all energy is created equal. The ZZ plant holds its own kind of calm. It doesn't shout for attention. It grows slowly, steadily, like someone who's survived hard seasons and no longer needs to prove anything. It teaches you patience, stillness, observation. If you sit near it long enough, you begin to notice its leaves turn toward light, always. Even if you move it the next day, it's adjusted itself. No drama, no noise, just quiet alignment. And maybe that's the lesson. That wealth isn't a windfall, it's a slow turning toward what nourishes you. That maybe abundance isn't what you get, it's how you arrange what you already have. That maybe the plant was never the answer, but it was always a doorway. So if you've been feeling stuck, if your ZZ plant is still alive but your finances feel asleep, maybe it's time to ask, not what's wrong with the plant, but where have I placed it? What energy did I bring to it? And what part of me has been waiting for something outside to finally change what's inside? The ZZ plant doesn't promise miracles, but it does invite mindfulness. And sometimes in the stillness of a plant quietly reaching for light, you find something softer than luck. You find clarity, and clarity, that's where the real growth begins. Part 2, it's not just a pot, it's a compass. You didn't just buy a plant, you placed a message into your home. Whether you realized it or not, the moment you set that ZZ plant down, you were telling the space and yourself what kind of energy you were ready to invite in. And where you put it, that matters more than most people think. Because energy isn't abstract, it moves, it flows, it collects, it weakens. And every room in your home holds a different kind of current. There are corners that feel comforting and ones that feel oddly quiet. There are spots where conversations seem to linger and others where no one ever sits. It's not about superstition, it's about sensitivity. Your home isn't just a structure, it's a field, a map. And where you place objects in that map either opens energy or stifles it. The ZZ plant is often placed as a symbol of prosperity. But what if it's been placed in a direction that blocks exactly what it was meant to attract? Maybe it's sitting in the center of your home, a spot called the energy well. This space can be sensitive. Too much movement here and energy scatters. Too little and it stagnates. A heavy pot in the center of the room can create a gravitational pull dragging everything down. Or maybe it's tucked in the bathroom, a place traditionally associated with downward flow. Water drains there. Light dims. Vibes fade. That plant, no matter how beautiful, starts to hold a kind of heaviness. Now imagine shifting it, just a few steps, into the southeast corner of your living room, an area long associated with the energy of wealth and expansion. Suddenly, the plant isn't absorbing weight. It's aligning with flow. Or place it in the north of your workspace, a zone tied to career growth. It becomes a quiet motivator, not a forgotten hope. In the west or northwest, it strengthens the roles of support, of stability, of provision. And in those places, the plant does what it's meant to. It roots your energy. It gives your intentions a direction. It becomes a living compass. We're not talking about magic. We're talking about awareness. The kind of quiet wisdom that says, this isn't just pretty, this is purposeful. Because so many of us feel stuck, not because our lives lack potential, but because we never gave that potential a place to live. We filled our homes with objects we liked, not things we respected. We arranged spaces for appearance, not alignment. We placed symbols in random corners and wondered why nothing changed. But when you shift from decorating to directing, everything shifts with you. That's the real work of intention. And the ZZ plant, in all its quiet simplicity, is a powerful tool for that shift. It doesn't demand attention, but it responds to placement. Give it space and it will stretch. Give it light and it will lean. Give it meaning and it will hold it for you. There's something humbling about walking through your own home and asking, Where is energy getting lost? Where am I asking for flow but placing symbols in places that block it? It takes honesty and it takes care. But once you begin, the difference is tangible. A room starts to breathe again, a desk feels clearer. A corner stops feeling heavy, and you begin to notice your mood softens, your mind opens, something inside begins to shift with you. Because you're no longer waiting for energy to arrive. You're creating a path for it with one small plant, one small movement, one simple decision to be a little more present. And in that moment, quiet, subtle, nearly invisible, you stop living by chance, and you start living by choice. Part 3, the plant isn't broken, it's reflecting you. You glance at the plant. The leaves aren't as bright as they used to be. A few yellowed tips, maybe a dry stem leaning sideways. You think, maybe I forgot to water it. Or maybe it needs more light. And maybe it does, but what if it's something else? What if your ZZ plant isn't dying, it's mirroring something in you? That's the part we rarely talk about, that plants, especially ones we keep close, don't just sit there looking pretty. They absorb, they echo, they respond. And when something in your space or inside you goes quiet, tight, uncertain, they show it, not all at once, but slowly, quietly. In the same way your energy dims when you're tired, scattered, overwhelmed, so does theirs. You see, people think plants are about routine, sunlight, water, clean air. But truly thriving plants, especially symbolic ones like the ZZ, are about relationship. They reflect the rhythm of the environment they live in. A space with clarity, presence, and intention. The plant grows easily, but a space weighed down with clutter, mental fog, emotional stuckness. The plant hesitates, it pulls inward, not because it's broken, but because the environment is asking for something deeper. Maybe you placed that plant during a season of transition, after a divorce, during financial stress, after a job ended or a new chapter began. And for a moment, it brought hope. But then life got busy again. Emotions came in waves and you stopped noticing it. Just like you stopped noticing how you weren't sleeping well, or how you sighed a little more often, or how you walked past certain parts of your home without feeling anything. The ZZ plant doesn't bloom or cry for attention. It simply reflects the stillness, the neglect, the small disconnections, and that's where the power is. Because what if that yellowing leaf wasn't just a leaf, but a signal? A whisper, this part of your energy needs tending. Maybe it's not about the plant thriving. Maybe it's about you returning to presence. People often ask, why isn't the plant working? As if it's a vending machine for abundance. But the ZZ plant was never meant to deliver wealth. It's a barometer, a spiritual mirror, a way to track the unseen shifts in your emotional and energetic home life. And if you want to know how you're really doing, start by looking at the plant's posture. Is it upright or slumped? Is it reaching for light or shrinking from it? Are the leaves firm and responsive, or soft and curling in? These are not just gardening details. These are symbols, visual cues for what you're feeling but haven't said out loud. And once you start seeing them that way, you can't unsee them. The plant becomes a check-in, a kind of living journal. And here's the moment everything changes, when you stop asking, what's wrong with this plant? And start asking, what has shifted in me? Have I been distracted, avoiding something, carrying tension I haven't named? Because when you name it, not in guilt, but in kindness, energy begins to move again. The act of wiping the leaves becomes something sacred, a ritual of return. Watering it isn't about moisture, it's about care, attention, reconnection. And slowly the plant starts to respond, not because of fertilizer, but because the energy around it softens, becomes alive again. It's subtle, but it's powerful. The way the plant perks up when the home feels more open. When you start playing music again. When sunlight reaches that corner because you finally opened the curtain. It mirrors joy and presence and healing. And if it mirrors your overwhelm, your fatigue, your quiet sense of waiting, that's not a failure. That's honesty. That's the plant doing what it's always done, listening, without judgment, just reflecting, just waiting. So no, the ZZ plant isn't broken. It's been trying to tell you something, in a way no one else could, because sometimes it's easier to ignore our own stress. But when you see it in something living, something you're responsible for, it lands differently. That's when you remember abundance isn't about more, it's about movement. And movement begins with awareness, with noticing, with choosing to see what you've tuned out, and from that awareness flows action, gentle, clear, rooted. That's when the plant begins to heal, and so do you. Not because you did anything dramatic, but because you returned to connection, to stillness, to care. And in that return, the energy shifts quietly, but unmistakably. Part 4, a small ritual for a big shift. Most people think rituals have to be complicated, that they require incense, chants, or some kind of spiritual training. But the truth is, a ritual is simply a moment you give meaning to, a pause that says, this matters. And sometimes the smallest ones carry the biggest power, like the act of cleaning a leaf, like how you hold a plant in your hands and remember you're holding something alive, something that breathes the same air you do, something that reflects your home's energy back to you day after day. You don't need to burn sage or buy anything new. Just start with what you already have, a soft cloth, a bowl of water, ideally rainwater if you've collected it, or simply filtered water if that feels more realistic. Add a few petals if you like, rose, lavender, jasmine, but you don't have to. The magic isn't in the objects, it's in the attention. Pick a day when you won't be rushed. Maybe it's the first day of the month, or the full moon, or just a quiet morning when the house is still and you can hear your own thoughts. Bring the plant to a space with natural light, somewhere you can sit comfortably and see each leaf clearly. Then slowly, gently begin wiping the leaves one by one. Don't rush, don't scrub, just touch. Softly, with intention, and as you clean, say something, not out loud if that feels awkward, but inside. Say, this is the energy I tend to. This is the part of me I'm bringing back to life. Or something simpler. As I care for this, I care for myself. It's not about superstition, it's about shifting from doing to being, from neglect to presence, and that shift, while small, is everything. Because in that stillness, something happens. The noise of the world fades, the to-do list disappears, and what's left is just you, breathing, moving slowly, choosing care. You may notice your breathing slows, your shoulders drop. Time feels different, not frozen, but softened. And in that softness, the message lands. Abundance doesn't come because we ask loudly. It comes because we align gently, because we create conditions where it's welcomed. And a ritual, no matter how simple, becomes that invitation, not to the universe, but to yourself. So much of modern life is about managing, hustling, reacting. But rituals ask you to relate, to remember that your home isn't just where you live. It's where your energy lives. And when you show up for it, when you clean one leaf, one corner, one forgotten part of your space, you're also saying, I believe something good can grow here. And that belief, quiet, consistent, is the seed of everything. Even if you don't believe in energy, even if you think it's just a plant, even if you feel silly doing it the first time, try it. Try slowing down. Try turning your mind off and your presence on. Try making care an action, not a concept. You don't need to understand everything to begin. You just need to begin. Because the shift doesn't happen in some grand moment. It happens in the quiet ones, the gentle ones. The ones no one sees but you. That's what makes it powerful. That's what makes it yours. And when you finish, when the last leaf is clean and the bowl is empty and the light has shifted just a little in the room, take one breath. Just one. Let it land. Let it settle. Let it seal something. The ZZ plant might not change your life, but how you relate to it just might. Part 5, if you placed it with hope, try moving it with intention. At some point you placed it with hope. You may not even remember the moment. It could have been during a difficult month after a loss, or simply in a season where you needed something green to look at. You didn't overthink it, you just picked a spot near the light or wherever there was room. And in that small act, without saying it out loud, you made a wish. Maybe not in words, but in feeling. That something would shift, that energy would soften, that life would begin to flow a little more easily. And for a while that hope was enough. But time passed. The plant kept growing, or maybe it didn't. You barely noticed. Bills came in, plans changed, days got busy. And that quiet little pot sat where you left it, holding onto your original intention like a note folded in half and tucked away. Still alive, still waiting. Now you find yourself wondering, has anything really changed? Is this just another houseplant, or is it something more? If you've been feeling stuck, stagnant, or just vaguely disconnected, the answer might not be about the plant itself, but about what it represents. Because where we place things reflects how we think energy moves in our lives. And when we place something with hope but never revisit it with clarity, it becomes frozen. Like a dream that never made it to the calendar, or a goal we stopped believing in halfway through. So here's the invitation: move it. Not randomly, not out of frustration. Move it with a new layer of intention. Stand in your space, feel the corners, sense the light. Ask quietly, where do I want more flow, more ease, more prosperity? Then pick up the pot and walk it there, not as a correction, but as a conversation. As a response to the part of you that dared to hope in the first place. When you move the plant, you move your energy. When you dust the windowsill or shift the bookshelf to make space for it, you're not just rearranging furniture, you're rearranging belief. The act of choosing a new placement says, I am not powerless. I can change the way energy moves in my space and therefore in my life. And even if the world feels out of control, even if the economy is unpredictable, even if nothing else feels stable, this I can do. This I can honor. Because a plant doesn't just grow where it's planted, it thrives where it's supported. The same goes for your energy, for your goals, for the version of yourself that you're still becoming. Maybe you didn't know what you were doing when you bought that ZZ plant. Maybe it was just something to fill a corner. But now you know more, now you've listened longer, now you can choose again. And choosing again consciously is one of the most powerful things you can do. There's something quietly revolutionary about that. Moving a pot, cleaning a space, realigning your home with who you've become, not who you were when you first placed that object. And that kind of ritual, that kind of reclaiming doesn't just affect the plant. It ripples through your mood, through your focus, through your finances even. Because when you align your environment, you often find that the rest of life begins to cooperate, not all at once, but in small, affirming ways. Suddenly, you get a phone call you weren't expecting. A check arrives sooner than you thought. A conversation goes better than planned. These aren't coincidences, they are confirmations. That energy follows clarity. That when you show the universe where you're ready to receive, it listens. And if nothing happens right away, that's okay too, because you didn't do this for a reward. You did it to wake something up. To re-enter relationship with your space, your energy, your desires. You moved the plant to say, I'm still here. I still believe, and now I'm ready to act in alignment with that belief. So go ahead, pick up the pot, wipe the bottom. Find the place that feels a little more alive, and place it down not as a decoration, but as a declaration. Let it be your quiet message to yourself. I no longer wait. I rearrange. I reopen. I realign, because the smallest shifts often carry the biggest energy. And in a world that teaches you to keep going no matter how disconnected you feel, there's something deeply healing about choosing to pause, to recenter, and to say, let's begin again. Final, so maybe now, as you glance back at that quiet little plant in the corner, you see it differently. Not as a magical object, not as a symbol that failed you, but as a companion, a mirror, a quiet participant in your space who's been whispering all along. We've talked about how energy moves, how placement matters, how intention breathes life into even the most ordinary things, and how sometimes it's not about adding more, but about noticing what's already. The ZZ plant doesn't promise miracles. It doesn't generate money or success by itself. But what it can do, if we let it, is create a pause, a point of reconnection. A soft, living reminder that your environment is not separate from your state of mind. It reflects it, it holds it. And when tended to with awareness, it can shift with you. You don't need to change your whole house. You don't need to know all the right directions or follow every rule. What matters is your presence, your care, your willingness to move something with love instead of habit, to touch something with belief instead of doubt. And if your plant is still alive, even just hanging on, it means hope is still there. Energy is still listening. And you still have time to change the way your space supports your spirit. Thank you for being here, for watching, for letting this message find its way to you. I hope it felt like a soft breath in a noisy world, like something clicked even just a little. And if it did, I hope you carry that feeling with you into the next corner you clean, the next breath you take, the next leaf you touch. May your home feel lighter. May your energy feel clearer. And may whatever you're calling in find its way to you soon. You deserve that and more. Until next time, stay well, stay grounded, and keep listening to the quiet things. They speak volumes.